So, October Scaries, if this is your first video from me, this is my series where I'm watching and reviewing 13 horror thriller films that I have never seen before and reviewing them. We're going to talk about Tales from the Hood, which came out in 1995. Tales from the Hood is a horror film where 3 drug dealers show up at a funeral home to pick up the stuff. Drugs. The funeral director, Mr. Sims, answers the door, and as he leads them through the funeral home to get them to the stuff, he tells them stories about the residents of the funeral home. Tales from the Hood is a horror anthology. It has 4 stories in one, and I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed most of the stories. I really enjoyed Mr. Sims. I think he's a great character, very kooky, creepy. The stories have themes of racism, child abuse, inter-community violence, aka black on black crime, as well as police brutality. All very heavy themes, I think mostly done right. I found the stories very immersive and very distinct from one from the other. Each time we moved on to a new story, I was not thinking about the old one. So I think, considering how many stories it had to tell, I think it did a really good job. It's directed by Rusty Cundiff. It is written by Rusty Cundiff as well as Darren Scott. It stars Clarence Williams III, Joe Torre, Samuel Monroe Jr., and DeAndre Bonds. And I'm going to stop right there because it stars a lot more people than that, including David Alan Grier. Okay, so let's go through each of the stories. So our main characters are Stack, Bulldog, and Ball. They're the drug dealers who come to the funeral home. They're looking for the stuff. Very 90s, like over the top drug dealers, you know? So the first story is Clarence Smith's story. So we flash back to his story. He was a rookie cop and his partner was a white cop. They drive up to a stopped vehicle. There are 3 other cops who have stopped this vehicle. Clarence is very green, very like, I'm here to do a good job. I've joined the force. I am naive. And so his partner sends him to go check the driver's ID. The driver of the stopped car is a black man. His name is Martin Morehouse. As Clarence goes to, granted, the cop car is 2 cars away, but apparently he has, like, his hearing is very bad because when those 3 cops start beating the crap out of Martin, he doesn't hearing it. He's just like very dutifully checking, looking up the information, running the license and the license plate. Those cops beat Martin to a pulp because Martin is a civil rights leader / lawyer. There's an issue of, there's accusations of the cops dropping drugs in the community, and basically ruining the community. So they beat that man they beat him to a pulp. Eventually they kill him by injecting him with drugs and rolling his car down into the water. And so then he dies, and the paper runs a terrible story about him post-mortem, saying that, like, oh, it turns out he was a drug user and all that stuff. And so Clarence ends up quitting the force because he feels betrayed by his cop brothers. I find this story to be an indictment on Clarence. Like, Clarence joined the system and was of no use to a fellow black man. He was of no use. He might as well have not been there. He, of course, feels very guilty about it all. He quits the force. He takes up drinking, and he gets haunted by Martin. Martin says, "Bring me the cops," and so Martin gets his revenge. I don't understand the order that the cops were killed. I would think Strom, which interesting name, like Strom Thurmond. I would think he would go last, considering he's the one who actually killed Martin. But the partner goes last, which would make sense if this was Clarence's revenge, but it's not. Anyways, I like that story. I like the special effects in that story. I liked the way that Ghost Martin or Zombie Martin sounded. I thought that was great. I liked the lesson and that, or the indictment of Clarence and maybe even black cops as a whole. Because it's basically like, what difference are you making by joining the system? Like, the system is still running smooth as can be, well-oiled machine despite your presence. So what are you doing? So that one was like police law enforcement as the horror element. The second story is child abuse as the horror element. I knew from jump that it was a stepfather. I just wasn't sure what kind of abuse. I'm like, is it like molestation or is it physical abuse? So this little boy, he's new at a new school. He's showing up with bruises, and turns out he's being abused at home. His teacher, who turns out is the director and also writer of the movie, Rusty, right? His name is Rusty? Yes. The teacher makes a home call, wellness check, and I'm like, were people's senses off in 1995? Because why aren't you seeing that the mom is terrified? Why aren't you seeing the change in her demeanor from how she was with you to how she is when her husband gets home? That one I liked as well, although I think, it's a child story. Like, even the way that the problem is solved, that the monster is defeated, is very childlike. It is beautiful that the little boy, Walter, takes his freedom. He wasn't saved by any of the adults. He takes his freedom, gains his freedom through a very childlike activity, drawing. Children love to draw. And so it's beautiful that that's how he got his freedom. And also the way that the stepfather went down, right? He crushed him. And so he became like very like Laffy Taffy. I don't even know if that's like correct. Like, what is the constitution of a Laffy Taffy? Anyways, and then he gets stuffed into the oven. That's something you'd see in a cartoon, maybe Tom and Jerry, I don't know. Like, where he gets turned into like a very floppy thing and then gets put in the oven. So I did like that as well. The teacher, though, he needs to be retrained on like spotting signs of abuse and distress in the home if he's going to be making house calls. The next story, which I call Revenge of the Ancestors, is my favorite story. That story felt very 2025. We have a racist man running for, governor? Yes, Duke Medgar Duke. I think they're in Louisiana. He's a KKK member, former, allegedly. He's running against affirmative action. He's running against reparations. He's running against social welfare. I'm like, who are you? Who are you? Were you on the ballot last November? Yeah, that's what it felt like. I'm very impressed with this story. I'm very impressed with the special effects in this story, with the dolls, and especially when that one doll attacks Duke. Like, there wasn't anything cringy about it. It looked really good. The green screen for the dolls were very good. I've seen more. It was better than some of the CGI and green screen stuff in the present. I think is the strongest story in the anthology, not just because it feels like 2025, but just it's very straightforward. The slurs were flying in this one. My God. He does things that fly in the face of the Black community, which is part of the community that he's supposed to be serving as governor. Like, he rents an old plantation home, like the way he talks about people. I also enjoyed the half black man, Creole, I don't know. He had melanin, and he was helping this man and also training him on how to like clean up his image, as if that was possible. And he ended up getting murked by the ancestors. Like, sit your ass down permanently. Okay, so the last story is my least favorite story, and I think is the weakest one. I don't like the subject matter. Okay, so the last one, Crazy K story, is giving very much Scared Straight. Not just for Crazy K, but I guess for the Black people watching. What saves this, even though this is story number 3, and then story number 4 is about the 3 drug dealers, what saves the third one and makes it a bit more palatable is because it is tied to the climax of the overall movie, of what I'll say is like the main storyline. So Crazy K is a drug dealer / gang member. He gets shot. He's shot by 3 people who are in shadow, and he gets arrested. He's taken to the jail. He lands in a cell with a white supremacist who goes on and on about like, oh, I want to start a race war, and I'm recruiting Black people who can help with that. You be killing your brothers, so join me. So the whole thing is about like Crazy K is just as bad. What he's doing is just as bad as what white supremacists do. And things go crazy because I did not expect this movie or this story or even this particular short story to feature like real images of like lynchings and stuff like that. But like Crazy K gets put through this like almost like conversion therapy, where he's bombarded with like, first of all, with the ghosts of the people who he has killed or who have also died from like just generic like gang violence. But we, the audience, are seeing like images of real lynchings, but also images of like people who die from like gang violence. And I don't appreciate it. It's a false equivalence. The motivation is like, let's stop killing each other. Like, we should be looking out for each other because we're like under this system. But like, it ignores that like black people are human. Like, no, we're not magical beings. Oppression is not going to keep us from harming each other because that's just not the human way. It's not the human way. People harm those who are closest to them. People harm others because of other injustices that they're experiencing, like poverty, like abuse in their own home. I enjoyed the part where Crazy K was like, what about me? What about like how I was abandoned and all the systemic ways that I have been failed? Why should I give a damn about the community when like the community failed me? Basically, it's tough, but that woman was basically like, the choice is still yours. You can change. And I'm like, no, I reject this little lesson that you're trying to give. Ma'am, you're part of a destructive system yourself, okay? Saying that the KKK and like black gangs in particular, like the violence and their effect on black people is the same is completely misguided. I understand where it's coming from. It's misguided and also just not true. It's the last story, really, the last story that Mr. Sims tells. By that point, he brings the boys to where the stuff is, and turns out it's 3 coffins, and they are in there because they're the ones who shot Crazy K, and the police shot them, and they are dead. And so that's the big reveal, the big twist. But the line reading from Mr. Sims, where he goes, "This ain't no funeral home. It ain't the Thunderdome or the Terror Dome either. Welcome to hell, mother." I loved it. I was hyped. I love the twist. Like, the Crazy K story is saved by that reveal of like what's going on and where are we at and who is Mr. Sims and the boys are dead and stuff like that. It's saved by that. It still is like the actual Crazy K part is still the weakest of the 4 stories, but I do like the tie in the very end. I give Tales from the Hood 3 out of 5 stars. I wish this was the last movie on the list instead of second to last, because the next one, The Evil Dead, sucks.